Yep.
It's kind of like a bar mitzvah. We have to decide where to sit.
Indeed.
Go ahead.
Rick, you'll be sitting next to me. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you doing?
Okay.
This one?
Usually it's Steve who starts with introductory remarks, right?
Yeah, but you don't need me.
I always need you.
Come on.
You know that.
All right.
Sorry to keep you all waiting. Things are moving in real time.
We're used to it.
You mean this isn't like on TV where it all is wrapped up in 45 to 50
So
minutes?
tied up with a bow and everything's cool. Yeah, no.
And then we all meet at a bar afterwards to celebrate?
Well, that part is still optional.
Excellent.
Right.
Andy, do you want that one over there still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Here she is. Okay, folks, thank you very much for your patience again. I appreciate it. Sorry for the delay. I'm just going to introduce everybody here, and then we're going to go down the line. People making some comments about what's going on today, and then we will open it up for any questions that you have. My name is Stephen Brown. I'm Executive Director of the ACLU of Rhode Island. To my immediate right is Lynette Labinger, cooperating attorney for the ACLU of Rhode Island. Next to her, Jennifer Wood, the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Center for Justice, also an attorney involved in the case. Next to her is Rick Corley, the attorney who filed the initial lawsuit last week that led to a temporary restraining order that this lawsuit is following up on. And then at the far end is Adam Northrop, Northrop, correct? Who was one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. You should have received a copy of our news release and the complaint. As you will see, this complaint that has just been filed is on behalf of 24 individuals who've been camping and protesting at the State House, and the lawsuit is designed to allow them to continue to stay there with their protest. And there will be a court hearing tomorrow at 10 a.m. To discuss the request for a preliminary injunction to allow them to continue to stay there. So with that, I'm going to have Lynette explain some more of the details of the suit, and we'll go on right down the line. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to qualify what Steve has said a little bit. Many, if not all, of our clients are protesting. They're protesting on behalf of themselves, and they're protesting on behalf of others unhoused in the community who can't get adequate shelter. They would also like to have adequate shelter and housing, and we've been trying to work with the state to focus on getting these people housed and getting other people who are in difficult shape housed, adequate and sufficient housing as the primary thing that we're doing. Because the state is unwilling to work with us on it and just basically says they have no right to be there and we'll get to them when we get to them. We are going forward with this proceeding, and on pretty short order. I really want to congratulate my colleague Rick Corley for running into court. The ACLU had heard about the problem and had sent a letter which was ignored, I think is the fairest way of putting it, by the governor. And when it came to our attention that there was proceeding going forward, the ACLU and the Center for Justice really stepped forward to assist Mr. Corley in pulling this together, and it's been a very collaborative effort with everyone doing different things to try to make sure that these voices are heard not just on the State House grounds, but in the courthouse.
Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Wood. I'm the Executive Director at the Rhode Island Center for Justice. It's my privilege to be representing people who are staying out at the State House to elevate the issue that is confronting people who have no adequate shelter in the winter in Rhode Island. And I want to thank Rick Corley for jumping in to file this legal action to protect people who are exercising their First Amendment rights at the State House from being removed from the State House. People who we are representing in this matter are not staying at the State House because they enjoy freezing in the winter on the plaza in front of the State House, but rather because there's a longer-term, relatively intractable issue that the state has been confronting. At the Center for Justice, we represent people facing housing insecurity every day. A couple of my colleagues are here with me who go to court and try and defend evictions and assist people to prevent homelessness. But inevitably, we find that there are many more unhoused people than there are adequate shelter resources. And that if you go upstream one layer from that, there are many more unhoused people than there is adequate affordable housing. And so the people who we are representing today are elevating those two concerns, and we are here to ensure that their constitutional right to petition their government to solve that problem is upheld.
My name is Rick Corley. I'm a attorney that practices by myself. I'm a solo practitioner. On Sunday, I received a text from a friend asking me if I would agree to try to assist the people at the State House. And I said, he explained to me what was going on. He said, what would something like this cost? And I said, you more money than you guys have. So I told him, of course I'll help. I work out in the community. I have a law practice that predominantly is in criminal justice, criminal defense. I work with people in the recovery community. I sit on the board at Litigation in Bridgemark, and I've been doing that work for a long time. And placing people into housing is always part of our case. And when I went up to the State House and I started meeting and speaking with these people, I was just aghast that when I read the notice that they received, it looked like something that my kids in kindergarten, or grandkids in kindergarten, and kids when they were in elementary school would bring home. My position is that their mere presence at the State House is a statement. It is a statement that they are committed to trying to find housing for themselves, and it is a statement that nobody in Rhode Island should be homeless. Personally, I believe that housing should be a civil right that is provided by the state. And if you don't have a place to stay, it's pretty hard to deal with all of the problems that we've all had to deal with during the COVID epidemic. But it is multiplied for someone who does not have a home. Each one of the people that I've talked to has a story that has similar concerns, but each one of them has their own story. And Adam has graciously agreed to come tonight, and I think anything that I have to say will pale in comparison to hearing from someone who's actually in the midst of this.
How you guys doing? My name's Adam.
Steve, can you move that lamp? Can you move the lamps too?
How you guys doing? My name's Adam Northrop.
Push that mic on.
I've been at the State House on and off here in the past couple weeks. Due to the fact that I can't find housing because A, it's either my criminal background from before, or B, because of my credit. It's not that I don't have an income, I work a full-time job, but the thing is that people don't want to give people second chances. And it's very hard. And my message to the governor is this, is if you take a water bottle and you use it as a human body, it's 19 degrees outside, what happens to that water bottle? That's a human body. And it's brutal outside. I woke up, I couldn't feel my feet this morning. And people ask me, well, why am I there? It's not, I choose to be homeless. I can't find no way. And I want to help the people, even though I'm in the same predicament.
You think this will help?
Yeah. Because they're not in it alone. They're in it, we're all in it together.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We're opening up to questions now.
Yeah, I have one. Yesterday, the governor said that the people in support of this lawsuit are working to keep people homeless. And I was wondering if anybody had a comment on that statement?
It's 100% false on my part. It is not to keep people homeless. This is not a grandstanding event. This is a sincere effort by a group of lawyers to try to help other human beings find housing. It has to be appropriate housing. There are couples that are involved, there are women that are involved. At the beginning, I believe there were some children that were involved, and I think they may have been placed somewhere, but some of the options that the state is offering are not appropriate for this population. It should be appropriate housing.
With the addition of the Center for Justice and the ACLU, helps bolster your case?
They have been a godsend. I welcome them with open arms, and it feels good to meet them again, because we have all been in the courts for over 30 years, and I welcome them, and I couldn't have done it by myself.
From a legal standpoint, is there strength in numbers here, do you feel?
There's always strength in numbers. However, in this case, there is strength in the legal experience that is sitting at this table. And I think that will help our clients immensely. And certainly, the job that I would have been able to do as a single lawyer would have been a lot more difficult if I did not have the help of these two women.
Over the last couple of days, we've asked the governor repeatedly, are there efforts outside the court to resolve this, and he seemed to slough that off and say no. Is that your experience?
No, we've
I'd
had,
like to address that.
Can I just,
There we go. Thank you.
Thanks.
As soon as the three of us became involved in this matter, we've had several conferences with attorneys representing the governor's office over the weekend. We've been in conversation with them. The focus of those conversations is to identify people who are staying at the State House in the winter, in the cold, and need housing. And we've, in fact, spent quite a bit of time trying to ensure that those who work for the state and might help to find housing for people who are staying out at the State House would be able to connect with our clients and assist them in finding appropriate shelter resources. So those conversations, I would interpret them as ongoing, in fact, and I would expect to continue to speak with attorneys for the state about what are the practical solutions to get people sheltered in the winter.
does the lawsuit also seek to allow more tents to be pitched at the State House, or just to keep the ones that are currently there?
Well, literally, the lawsuit is on behalf of the people that are named in the complaint at this time.
So it'd be to keep them there, no
Well,
newer.
This is my qualification before, which is the people who are there are trying to send a message that there's not adequate housing. I would expect that if the governor and the state were to make good on their promises to get people housed, people are going to declare victory and go get housed, okay? It's too cold. Whether that means that someone new will eventually come and try to do the same thing there or at another location because, you know, the adage, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I mean, that's why they're there in the first place. Now, one of the things in our lawsuit that we raise is that there's clearly a First Amendment right of freedom of speech, petition the government, peaceably assemble. But those rights have some limits, and the government can create reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions or limitations. And they claim that they have. But it's kind of ironic because they're the highest level of government has ignored their own rules and regulations, which is the Administrative Procedures Act, which says how to do it. And they aren't following them at all. And at some point, we expect that they will come up with crafting some that apply to everyone and not just target the most vulnerable in our population. But we've given them information, we've given them contact information, we've urged them to focus on that as opposed to the lawsuit and just keep things going while people get housed. But I think they want to make a point that, you know, our clients have made their point. We can't do a better job of making the point. We need to protect them on it, but they've made the point. We don't need we need to get them housed if possible, and that's our primary goal.
Two quick questions. First of all, last year, roughly around the same time, an encampment was established. State police were present. I have video of a conversation between organizers of the encampment and the state police actively approving, based on a First Amendment status, that encampment. They broke it down on their own volition after they felt they'd met their political gains. What is the state of Rhode Island asserting that is the difference between last year's protest and this year's protest?
As far as we can tell, they claim they've adopted policies, but those policies do not appear in the Code of Rhode Island Regulations, and the Code of Rhode Island Regulations is very specific about how one adopts a policy. You put it out for public comment, you publish it, you hold a hearing on it, and you promulgate them. Or you have an emergency and you put it out, you adopt them, you declare it's an emergency, you have, I think, the governor and the agency sign off on it, it's only good for a limited period of time. Of all branches of the government that should know how to do it, the governor and the occupants of the state house should know how to do that, but they have not done any of that.
And a quick follow-up, and ironically, the state has been demonstrably pretty proactive in establishing emergency orders, regulations, pronouncements, all of that since the onset of the COVID crisis. The state appears to be, and please correct me if I'm wrong, employing some pretty high-priced talent to fight this. Is there a sense of irony, I'll direct this at Mr. Northrup as well, that the state is spending potentially a large amount of money to evict people out into the cold when that money might have been better spent, I don't know, anytime. We've known winter's been coming for a while. It's tradition here, over the last 6 months in preparing for this situation.
So were you listening in on our conversation yesterday? Because I made that same point to them. Yes, it's the resources that they're putting forward to, I mean, the law, I would respectfully submit, is clear. It's not a slam dunk for us. They can adopt policies if they do it the right way, and they're narrow, and they're not targeted against the most vulnerable people. They can adopt policies, and that will be on a going forward basis. What they can't do is just on an ad hoc basis say, you know, we're not comfortable with you people being there, and get rid of the most vulnerable people. So I don't think there's new law to be established here. We're just trying to enforce existing laws. So the need for the parties to spend so much time in litigation and the resources of the state, because they do have private counsel doing this, you know, we think could be better spent.
And I apologize.
To homeless.
I apologize for the last question, but this is political, and all things are political in this state. The prevailing story is that the governor was in a rage post Christmas tree lighting about the obvious conflict between fellow Rhode Islanders sitting in pouring rain, torrential, freezing rain, while the swells, if you will, had their party. Do you think this is a case of political expediency? I'll just throw that out there.
You can give that one to Steve.
Don't want to touch that one?
Can I ask a question? Adam, have you been approached by anybody from the governor's office about getting you housed?
Yesterday, I got quite a few phone calls, which ended up being somewhat correct and some incorrect. But the governor apparently was outside of the state house offering to put people out of the code, saying that's cold, put people off the code. That's just obvious. It is freezing.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as me getting offered housing, I haven't got offered anything.
What do you mean by correct or incorrect about the phone calls?
As far as like, there was only a certain amount of people that were getting put up. There still is people still there, and it is still freezing cold out. And so, you're gonna help people. It's not pick and choose. It's like some people, yes, need more, but it's not to pick and choose of who. All of them need to be housed.
Right. As of today, the governor's people told me that they've been in contact with everyone sleeping outside about getting them a house. You're saying that isn't true.
That's not what they told us yesterday. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday. We've had rolling calls,
Yeah.
and initially, when the case was filed and it just said John Doe et al., they were saying, well, there's only 4 or 5 people actually living in those towns. So my colleagues here, not me, thankfully, went out in the cold and met with, over 24 people. All of them said that they need help, that they have a message, and they, some of them may have been reached, but when we spoke with them, they said, no, they had our list, and they were not able to say, that they had spoken to everyone on the list.
They said 17 people yesterday, but they said 9 people last Wednesday, and their number's been moving a lot.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering, like, they don't
Well,
have an idea.
We didn't speak to the people who are actually making the calls.
Yeah.
I mean, we encouraged them to have the social service people make the calls, not that we did, we did not invite the lawyers to speak with them directly, and we were speaking directly with the lawyers, so there may be a disconnect in terms of those numbers, but, my colleagues have met with these folks, and they're still there.
And I think relevant to that, I want to personally thank Adam, because actually Adam took the time over the weekend to introduce Rick and I to a number of people who are unhoused, who have been staying at the State House. And I think that there are some trust issues there. It is complicated to approach someone who's in a tent, unhoused, may be concerned about being moved off the plaza at the State House after having received a notice saying that they're not allowed to be there. So I do think that we may have been able to, I know that we were able to speak with people who would otherwise not have wanted to speak to Rick Corley and Jennifer Wood, who they don't know from Adam. Were it not that Adam was willing to take the time and make that connection for us so that we could speak to people who are experiencing this situation.
There's a lot of people that have vacated their tents because they believe the state police are gonna come in and take them down. Adam said he's gonna make sure he sleeps in his tent tonight because he's afraid someone's gonna come and remove it. While we were sitting here, he showed me a text that one of his friends had contacted him because there was a mother and baby that were unhoused, and she had heard about this. It was anything that could be done, and he received an answer that the woman had been contacted by someone from DCYF, and the woman and the baby were put into a hotel. None of that would have happened if we hadn't filed this suit, because they wouldn't have known who to contact. And concerning the representation by private counsel, knowing that there is a statute in Rhode Island that says the Attorney General will represent all matters brought against the governor, I contacted the head of the civil division, and she told me that she didn't know if she was going to be handling it. And there was a member of the Attorney General that said on a Zoom call, but it is the lawyers from the private law firm that are really leading their defense in the litigation. Where that money is budgeted, I don't know. But there is already a system where the state personnel, the attorneys at the civil division of the Attorney General's office, have the duty to represent the governor in all civil actions.
The firm that's handling the support of the governor's position, private firm, that name is?
Out of the politics,
Machine is correct.
I kind of want to piggyback on what they both just said. As far as like on Sunday going up to the tents and stuff, there was a lot of people there, and a lot of them basically said that they didn't want to talk to nobody because they're tired of hearing lies, and that's all that's going on is lies, lies, lie this. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. When? It's a question. And hopefully come tomorrow, this will hopefully come to an end in a good way, and we don't got to worry about anything.
You're hopeful.
Yeah.
Adam, you said that you work as well. Can you explain to us what you do and what it's like to sleep outside while also trying to work?
I own my own company. My family also owns a trucking company. I help my uncle out every now and then, and also I do have, I'm a licensed electrician out of Virginia, so I'm trying to help my business back up slowly, gradually, with what little money I do have, just to try to build something, so rather than having to fight with landlords, I'm going to try to buy my own house. Sooner rather than later, because it's getting really full up.
How long have you been?
I've been fighting homelessness now going almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years.
I had an apartment in between that 2 years, but the lady kicked me out because the rent relief ran out.
Thank you.
Adam, I understand you're also involved as a volunteer in a local organization supporting others. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
On Sunday mornings, I go and cook breakfast for the homeless when I have time and when I'm not busy. On Fridays, I also volunteer there, and I also volunteer throughout the week at the church.
This is the Matheson
Yes, sir.
Street United Methodist Church?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.